today I've got with us Cameron Burke. Cameron, I've kind of watched you grow a little bit and was first kind of introduced to you, not really introduced, but I first saw you speak at the Oklahoma City, what was that?
Recon. Yeah.
Recon. Mostly for realtors.
Yes, sir.
I was an investor. There's a handful of investors there, but mostly realtors were at that one. But you talked about systems, and you inspired me, Cameron, because you're young, you're 22 years old, and you are doing a lot in the Oklahoma City space for realtors, but also investors.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to bring you on today to talk about some intentional things you've done. So
thank you, Marty.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. What else can you tell us about yourself?
So not much. I got into real estate right out of high school at 18. And we spoke about that a little bit earlier. Had an interesting.
So he kind of got in, guys, because his grandma kind of started taking care of him, and she bought him as a graduation gift. She bought him the Barnes.
Charles Barnes.
Barnes.
Yeah,
real
as a
estate
graduation
course.
gift. So, yeah. And just to backtrack, I like to talk about my story a little bit because I do think that it allowed me to grow up sooner than most people my age. My mom went to prison when I was 17, which was a huge blessing, believe it or not, for me and her, for both of us. So at the time she went to prison, I was living on my own in my grandma's house. My grandma found out, 6 months, 8 months, I was living by myself. So she moved in. That didn't quite work out. We didn't jive well at the time. And I was with Brooke, my now wife, at the time, and she finally said, "This is enough." So
Brooke or your grandma?
Brooke.
Okay.
She said, "You're moving in with us." So didn't really give me the choice. I moved in with her and her family, and from there on, I didn't want to rely on them. They supported me 100%, but I didn't want them to support me. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to be emancipated. There was a lot of stuff that I wanted to do that I couldn't do because I wasn't an adult. 17, I was operating as an adult, but in a child's world, or in a teenager's world, if that makes sense. So I started buying and selling cars. I sold my car that I had at the time for like $5,000. And then I just took that. I started reinvesting, started buying insurance auction vehicles, actually.
Okay.
So I buy one at a time.
This is 2020?
This is like 2018, 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, through here. So I take my $5,000, at the time. I go buy a vehicle, and I fix it up a little bit, and then I flip it, and then I go buy another one, and then I fix it up, flip it. I think we did 8 to 10 vehicles throughout high school that I did that with. It didn't work out.
What do you make a pop? $1,000, $1,500?
$1,000, yeah, $1,000, maybe $2,000 if it was like really good. I'd buy some off Facebook Marketplace as well. But the problem there is vehicles are actually a lot harder to sell than houses, in my opinion. You have a lot more that goes on. You have starters, you have spark plugs, I was learning as I was going, and I had one, this was a Chevy that I bought that had like this misfire. I could not figure out the misfire problem. And I was like YouTubing, I replaced a starter, replaced the spark plugs, and then like 4 or 5 months later, I meet a guy with the same Chevy EcoBoost, same model, same year, but he had a 6.2 in his, and mine was like a 5.3 EcoBoost.
Yeah.
I was like, "Why do you have a 6.2? He's like, "Well, I had this misfire, and then all of a sudden it like blew a rod one day." And I was like, "Oh, great." So that stressed me out. We finally ended up fixing it, selling it, and that was done. But like the stress of flipping vehicles was not worth it, and not for the amount of money that I was making.
But you learned to flip.
Learn to flip.
So what else did you flip?
Learn to get in front of people, learn to sell, on Facebook and whatnot. From there, we started selling refrigerators, actually. I don't know how we got onto this. It was me and my buddy at the time, but we found out there's a website, liquidation.com.
Okay.
So we were bidding on these refrigerators out of Garland, Texas, and we'd bid and we'd buy 5, 6, 7 at a time. And then we'd haul down to Texas, pick them up, bring them back. We didn't know how to work on fridges. So then, 1 to 2 of them wouldn't work.
Okay.
But a lot of them were just scratch and dent. So they didn't have issues. So we were buying nice side by side, nice just
Yeah.
nicer fridges.
What's your
the
margin on
stainless
those?
steel. The margin on those was really good actually. We were buying them for $300-400 a piece, selling them for 800.
Okay.
So that actually worked out pretty well.
And you could flip them faster.
We could flip them faster. Yeah. That price point between like 600 and 800 on Facebook would move really quick.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that up until about COVID, right around the time I graduated. And I realized at that time he wanted to move on. He was going to go be a firefighter.
Mm.
Everybody else I knew was going to college. This was like a little side gig. It was working a little bit, but it wasn't
money in the pocket. But
it wasn't enough to live off of or anything by that means. And that's when, I graduated. My grandma said, she told me, for the last year or so, I'm going to buy you this real estate course. I'm like, okay, cool. So by the time I graduated, that's all I really had. We had done the concurrent classes. We were, graduated with valedictorian. So we could have gone to college, but it just wasn't a route that I wanted to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the step and just, let's see what this real estate's about. See if it's a path that I want to move forward with.
Cameron, have you thanked your grandma for that course?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That's good. Because that literally pivoted your life from.
For sure.
I mean, you could have went a different direction at that point. A lot of young people do.
For sure.
They get free from mom and dad, and it's their choice to make their own. It's their first time they get to make their own choices, and they can spiral real quick.
Yes.
But she got you kind of on the straight and narrow.
Yep.
Don't realize it, but so go into your real estate journey.
So my wife Brooke and I got into real estate right at 18. Didn't quite know what we were doing. I assumed when we got into real estate, it was going to be clients everywhere. Like we just got to go through the course. So we went through the course, and we ended up getting connected with a flat fee brokerage at the time, where it was like you pay $300-400 per transaction, and that's it. So it's like, oh, if I sell $200,000 house or $300,000 house, I pay $300 and that's it. That sounded like a deal to me. What I didn't realize is it's a lot harder to get clients than people make it out to seem. And it's a lot harder to get clients when you're 18. I had no facial hair at the time. I looked about 15. I still look 15 if I shave, but that's why I keep the facial hair.
Okay.
But when you're 18, in an industry where the average realtor is 40, 45, and you have no value proposition, that's difficult. And it was difficult. And we went 8-9 months before we sold our first house, which thankfully was a family friend that I'm pretty sure they just felt bad for us. They had this house down in Lake Texoma. Like,
Okay.
We obviously were not well equipped to sell a house in Lake Texoma, but they allowed us to sell the property. We sold the property,
That's
and yeah, it was really cool. But then after that, I realized, there's different ways to sell real estate, and everybody was, you need to work your sphere. You need to work your sphere, and my sphere is a bunch of 18-year-olds at the time, and I didn't really know very many adults. And I also didn't feel worthy enough to work those deals, even if I did have deal flow come to me. I'm like, why would somebody want to work? And this is like a mindset shift that I had to go through. Well, why would somebody want to work with me, who's new in the business, who's never bought a house, who still lives with his girlfriend's parents, which is what I was at the time. Then
Tell me about that mindset shift. What changed?
It took a while.
Was it just time and
It's just
clients?
It's time and clients and getting the reps in, making the calls. The mindset shift came when I felt comfortable to sell a house. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't have the training. I never got true training until I joined the Levinson team later on, a year and a half later. But at the time, I wasn't comfortable with myself.
You were just thrown to the wolves.
I was just thrown to the wolves, exactly. And I had some early mentors they're great people, and one of them, actually, my old broker, works for us now as our transaction coordinator, and she's amazing. But I didn't believe in myself, and that was one of the big issues that I had early on, for sure. So,
do a lot of realtors, you think, struggle with that?
Newer realtors?
Newer ones,
I think so, yeah. Especially new in the industry. We have a younger team, 18 to 25, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to have the confidence in order to sell houses. And people they know if you're confident or not.
You have to have confidence to sell anything.
Exactly.
That's always what sells, is confidence.
And I didn't have any confidence early on. So putting the reps in, and then later on, when I started, intentionally with the Creative Homes Group and some of the creative options that we had, I realized, okay, I have a value proposition now. I can help people that other realtors can't. And that's when that was the big mind shift for me.
Yeah.
Like I sold houses throughout, the first 2 years, but I wasn't super comfortable with myself.
Yeah.
And then when I found these alternative programs, it was like, oh, why don't I just work with everybody who nobody else wants to work with? All the people challenge credit, all of the people who can't get traditional loans, and that's kind of how I got my start.
Is that what you still do?
As we still do that.
Yeah.
We
That's
still
your
serve.
specialty.
Our mission statement is to bring home ownership to everybody, to make home ownership available to anyone.
That's cool.
And I believe that's possible. If you're willing to work on yourself, working on your path, whether that's your credit score or work history, like there's always a challenge that you have to overcome.
Yeah.
If you're in that position, but we believe that we can help overcome any of those challenges.
Well, and Cameron, I would argue that's true of life. Like so many people get hung up on their past story.
Yeah.
And they let that define who they are.
100%.
And that's part of that credit score, whatever. And what you're trying to say is anyone can get out of it, right?
Oh, for sure.
And I would argue too, especially with this podcast, that we are not a victim of our past. I know psychology would very much teach that we're a victim of our circumstances, but I very much believe we can rise up out of that.
So I totally
even
agree.
A bad credit score or whatever, we can literally become a new person by the choices we make. So that's cool that's your mission statement.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I had people when I was younger, family, that said, hey, you're going to be a loser when you're older. You're going to be nothing, and I think that was pivotal when I was in my early teens, when I had those people close to me say, hey,
yeah,
I made a decision to go live with my mom at that time. And they said, hey, you're going to amount to nothing, and they believed it. And that fueled me for years. That one
in a good way,
in a very good way, very good way. And fuel can be used in a good way or a bad way. And I was very hot-headed. I was very hot-headed for a long time. Not anymore. I think I've chilled out quite a bit. But that definitely fueled me. And like, if you look at the statistics, I probably should be on drugs. I probably should not be where I'm at today. But I just don't believe that you are who other people say you are.
Sure.
You get to define where you want to go in life. And we were talking about this earlier as well. I truly believe, and this might be because I'm just a younger guy and I'm confident, but I believe I can do anything that I'd like in life.
I do too.
It's going to take a while, whatever that looks like. My little brother, he wants to be an astronaut. Every little kid wants to.
Yeah.
If he actually wants to, though, I'll support him in that.
Yeah.
And I think that he can. So it's just a matter of like what your why is at the end of the day and how big it is.
Personality Isn't Permanent. I mentioned that one earlier, but
yeah.
Personality Isn't Permanent by Benjamin Hardy. Really good book on the topic. I read that, and I'm a terrible singer.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm tempted. I'm tempted to like learn how to sing just to prove to the world that Marty can sing because he applied himself to it.
That is awesome.
Like,
you should go for
terrible.
that.
People say I'm tone deaf and all that. I just think I can't sing, but
you put in enough reps. It'd be unreasonable.
I really
to say.
believe I could do it.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So
I'm gonna have
anyway,
to check that
yeah, I
book
agree
out.
with you too.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Marty.
Yeah. So it's 2020. You sell your first deal, and it just starts trickling, right?
Yep. So we sold our first deal, and then I realized that problem, my constraint was leads. I didn't have enough leads.
Okay.
Didn't quite know where to get the leads, and then my other constraint was I didn't know how to work the leads at that point either. So we'd been reaching out to the Levinson team, to Tara Levinson, to post their listings, to hopefully get some leads that way. That was about all I knew at the time. And after reaching out 5, 6, 7 times, they invited us out to coffee. Me and Burke went to coffee with her and Peter, and then we ended up joining their team shortly after.
That's cool.
Yeah, so they taught us the foundation of what we needed to know, of like how to sell, how to get in front of clients, how to be confident. And they were there when we needed them. They had our backs. The team was awesome. So we slowly started to trickle up a little bit, and we were selling, maybe a few deals a month at that point.
Okay.
And then one day in one of the team meetings, someone had mentioned Berry Rock, which is a local lease purchase company. and they were like, we just did this deal through Barry Rock Homes. And I was like, what's Barry Rock Homes? You know, like, tell me more. And that's where I learned about the creative options outside of traditional financing. And, you know, as a realtor, it's not our jobs to know about financing. We're not lenders, but
it really
it's
helps.
a skill-based.
It's another
I mean, we're
weapon in your.
Exactly. We're in a skill-based market here as a realtor, you know, and relationship-based as well. But a lot of it is somebody's going to use you because they like you and because they're confident that you get the deal done, you know. And so once I learned about Barry Rock at that point, I reached out to them. I reached out to the owners. I went and joined them for, I think, lunch one day.
Okay.
And kind of broke down how their program works. They are a gap solution for people that can't qualify for traditional financing. So they gap people to traditional financing, so you get inside the house, and then when you're mortgage eligible, they return the deposit down, which is 7%, and then you can roll into traditional financing from there. We actually, Brooke and I went through Barry Rock on our personal residence.
Okay. So you know their program.
Know their program very well. Yeah. So we went through their program a year after that, I think. But that was kind of the start of the Creative Homes group of like, okay, we are a little bit different now.
Yeah.
I knew that I needed a value proposition. That was my big thing. I didn't want to be the guy that people used just because they like them. Like that is good. You know, that's a good reason. But if I'm...
But popularity runs thin at times too.
Yes, it does. Yeah. I want to be the guy that, you know, I've had clients that have worked with me over family members because I get the deal done, you know, and not that I'm taking clients, but
You're that guy, huh?
Yeah, I'm that guy. No, well, you know, they'll come to me and they're like, hey, I was going to buy a house. My cousin told me I can't buy a house. I got no options. You know, I'm like, well, let me show you kind of what we've got going on. And it's not that I stole the client, but they reached out to me. I got the deal done, you know, and I apologize if your realtor or if your client's reaching out to me, but if they are reaching out to me, I'm going to show them what we've got, you know. And so that was like huge for me of the value proposition of like, okay, we have creative options. The other thing there is, and I mean it, people really didn't like working with me as a younger dude. A, because I wasn't confident. B, because I didn't quite know what I was talking about. So I needed something that was like going to be a value proposition for me. That's where the creative options came in.
And that's what that was.
Yep. So that was the pivotal moment for me in my career that started to excel our income and kind of what we were selling. We went from maybe selling $200,000 to $400,000 a month in volume to upwards 750 to $1 million just shortly after there.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think 2021, I didn't sell a house until April, and then we sold 10 million, or like just under 10 million, like 9.8 or something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Second year in.
Yep.
That's
so
crazy.
Up until that point, it was pretty difficult though to get going and to do anything.
Cameron, do you have any habits or processes that you believe give you a unfair advantage or a competitive edge?
For sure, leverage and focusing on leverage. And I may be focused on leverage a little too much, but it's one of my favorite words. I think that when it comes to leverage, you can leverage a few different ways in terms of your resources. You can leverage your time, you can leverage your money, you can leverage software, you can leverage people.
Yeah.
And I don't say people in like a bad way, but if you have a team, you're leveraging your people. So one of the things that I focus on is I track everything in my calendar.
Okay.
This was booked out a week. It was in my calendar.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, any appointments, they're in my calendar. So I have like a Sundays, I start my week, and that's where I map out what are my main goals for this week.
Okay.
What do I want to accomplish? And I don't always accomplish them. You know, some weeks get really crazy, especially right now where I'm forcing our growth at the moment. It has been very chaotic. And we're in a time of...
You're pushing.
Yeah, we're in a time of chaos for sure. I mean, I'm working 6:30 to 8, 6:30, 7:30. Not that I want to, but because the team needs it right now. I have people that rely on us. It's not just a matter of like, it's just me and Brooke.
Yeah.
You know, we have a full team. We have people that rely on us for income. So I'm forcing the growth at the moment.
Tell me about your Sunday thing though.
Yes, Sunday. So
you set your week.
Set my weeks up on Sunday. Sundays are like my day. You know, you don't have lenders reaching out. I don't have my TC emailing. It's a lot less chaos going on throughout the week or on Sundays for me. So Sundays I line out. I use ClickUp, which is a project management software.
ClickUp?
Yeah, ClickUp has been absolutely huge for me, actually, in terms of like an unfair advantage. I have different dashboards built out. So I have a dashboard. We've got 32 units. So we have tenants now. We have work orders, et cetera. So I just built out a property management dashboard. I have a goals dashboard that outlines like my quarterlies, my weeklies, my monthlies, my long-term goals. Project dashboard that's just for our team projects. And then I have like my daily to-dos and my pending list. So usually by Sunday, it's all over the place. And there's tasks that aren't done, there's tasks that are done.
Sure.
Sunday's where I clean up. I'm cleaning up my dashboards. I'm looking, okay, what here is priority? I usually have some tasks on there that I didn't want to delete throughout the week because I'm like, I'm going to get to this, I'm going to get to this. If I haven't gotten to it by Sunday, I just delete it.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
It's gone.
Usually, or I'll move it to what's called a back burner tab. If I'm like, okay, this will be important in the next few weeks, but I can't get to this today, I move it to back burner. But otherwise, I just delete that task. If it's a task that I wanted to do Monday or Tuesday and I didn't get to it, and it's Sunday, I look at it and say, okay, is this important or not? Yeah. And if it's not, it's deleted. So I'm cleaning up my tasks on Sundays. I'm mapping out what are my main projects for the week. How do I want to push the business forward? Because nowadays I'm working. There's two different sides of the business. I know you go through this as well, but I've got my work. When am I going to be working on the business, and when am I going to be working in the business?
Yes.
And that's
both take intentionality.
Yes, both take intentionality. Both are quite a bit to make sure that you get to. So I'm intentional with my mornings. This week I've got an event coming up Saturday. I want to make sure that I get up there and don't, choke and know what I'm talking about.
You'll be fine.
So yeah, it'll be fine. But my biggest thing is like, I want to make sure that I'm comfortable, that I can talk naturally. So I've been memorizing kind of what I'm going to talk about on Saturday in the mornings this week and then last week as well. So
it sounds like a lot of intentionality in your life.
Yes, try my best.
What would happen if you didn't have your Sunday click up day?
There are some Sundays that I've missed.
And is it chaos the rest of the week?
Oh yeah, the rest of the week is extreme chaos. And I'll get to Wednesday, Thursday, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, we're doing deals, but I don't know where I'm at. Yeah. I don't know what's going on, because now I've got multiple different businesses that feed into my main business. We've got our holdings company, we've got our creative homes group, we have now a property management side, 32 doors. We've got quite a bit that goes into that now. And then I've got some other small ventures with business partners as well, where we're flipping a few properties. So it's easy to forget about those because there's so much going on. It's easy to forget about one of the properties that I own, and that actually happens. And I've had times where I don't put insurance on properties, and then a month will go by, and I'm like, I'm sitting in bed at 9 o'clock at night, about to go to sleep, and I'm like, I didn't insure that property. So it goes in ClickUp, I get it done. But the Sundays, being intentional, and I've got a little digital notebook. My wife thinks it's silly.
Are you digital on everything? I mean,
I try and be digital on everything.
So for me, I for many years I've used a thing called the Intention Journal. It's actually put out by Brandon Turner.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Bigger Pockets.
Yeah, he took, I think he said like 10 or 12 self-help gurus' journals, tried them all out, wrote down what he liked, what he didn't like, and then put them into this Intention Journal, used it for a couple of years, and then had Bigger Pockets publish it. But it's similar, except it would be pen and ink. But yeah, you write down goals. He has you identify roadblocks that will prevent you from getting there. Identify how you'll overcome those roadblocks, and then identify when you will work on those goals.
I like that.
It's really good. Yeah. And then there's an end of the week review.
That's one thing I don't do currently, is an end of week review.
Well, you kind of do, because you get to see what got done and what didn't.
From Sunday to Sunday.
In a sense.
That's true.
But the end of the week review is what went well, what didn't go well, what could I do better, So that might be something you add. But anyway, that, I will tell you, I haven't always done that. And when I miss those Sunday, because I do it on Sunday too.
Nice.
When I miss those Sunday times, I'm not as intentional all week. I don't know what direction I'm going. And what ends up happening is I'm reactive all week.
Yes, exactly. Rather than proactive.
Yes. And rather than steering in a specific direction, I end up getting a lot done, but it's not even necessarily productive things.
It's not on purpose.
Yes.
Yes. I totally understand that.
So that would, kudos to you for figuring that out
I appreciate
so early
that.
in your life, the importance of intentionally planning your week. And it sounds like your life, because you said you've got long-term goals in there, short-term goals, and the steps in between. So that's cool.
I appreciate that. Yeah, something I've focused on more this year rather than the last few years is just living a little bit more and enjoying myself. You know, we've had a good run. We've only been doing this for a short amount of time, but we've had, a good last few years. But I look back and I realized that I wasn't intentional with spending time with my family. Was the biggest piece for sure.
You need to put that in to click it.
It's in there. I've actually got a note to myself, just live, bro. And I look at it and it reminds me, to be intentional with my time and be intentional with like what matters the most. Try and think, one of my mentors taught me this, like, if you're on your deathbed, you're 80, like, and this because younger guys don't think about death. And I think it's important to. Yeah. It really is, because I've had a few health issues this last year, and that's finally, realized, okay, I'm not invincible. But if you're on your deathbed, like, am I going to look back and think like 2024, I didn't hit my income goals? No, I'm going to be more worried about, like, did I spend more time with my family? Did I foster relationships? Because really all we have is relationships at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's something I've been trying to be more intentional with this year, for sure.
That's good.